Hi, my name's Jamie, and I'm here to speak to you about Jane Franklin. Jane Franklin is the younger sister of Benjamin Franklin. They are both the youngest of each gender in their family, and there's about 6 years that separate them in age. They were very close growing up and well into adulthood. He only saw her about 7 times after leaving to move to Philadelphia when he was 17, but they were very close and wrote all the time. In fact, that's the only reason we truly even know about her, is through her letters with him. Just some background information on the time, before I launch into their story, is that there was something called the Massachusetts Poor Laws. In it, it said that boys were supposed to be taught to read and write, and that girls were supposed to be taught to read. They weren't really supposed to know how to write except their name, because it was seen as monstrous and unnatural, because it was taking away time from the family and creating children and cleaning and cooking. So, something interesting is that her doctor, just to give an idea of the true mindset, stated that menses for normal girls started between 9 and 10, and that early menstruation caused the uterus to become hard and dry. And this was caused by the early appearance of obscene books and materials, and to beware the bookish girl because she would be barren. This is what people thought back then. So the fact that Benjamin was just like, nope, not okay. I'm going to fight for women's education and teach my sister how to write herself was amazing, because it broke the norms of society and everything that they were being taught. In a way, Benjamin did this was he read more himself, because the best way he could teach her is by understanding it better. So when he started his apprenticeship as a printer, he had to learn how to spell better and to write better. And a way he did this was when he was about 15, he submitted a pen name anonymously with a story. And it was based off of Cotton Mather's Essays to Do Good and a title of a sermon that he preached at his daughter's funeral. His pen name was Silence Dogood. And the story that he wrote and continued to write was based off of his sister. And Silence Dogood was a woman. This was just a constant jab at Mathers because they had some issues with him. Their cousin was actually tried in Salem as a witch and was killed. So they had some problems. And just both brothers, him and his older brother James, who owned the print shop, just constantly took jabs at him, and it's amazing. So Ben not only based his first published work on his sister, but was helping her to write. And without that, she never would have been able to express herself later on in life. She married at about the age 15. She was about 15, like 4 months old, when she married her husband, Edward Meakin. He was constantly in debt. He ended up going to debtor's prison. Her father ended up paying his bail to get out. But this was after their house had been ransacked for anything valuable. Their desk, their beds, their horse, all of it was taken to pay off these debts. She started writing her books, the Book of Ages, shortly after her first child's death with Edward. The Book of Ages has the births, marriages, deaths, anything important about her children, her parents, and her husband and herself. It was just anything. It was a way to memorialize them and to remember them. Because at the same time, Cotton Mather's was like, dead children are as common as broken pitchers. And the ministers were like, weep not. The Bible says that. So don't weep for the dead children. You'll have more, hopefully, if you don't die in childbirth. But this was, like, they were scorned for mourning. So this was her way to let her grief out. And without that, who knows what would have happened. And she never would have had that if it wasn't for Benjamin teaching her how to do it. And just a parallel in between how Benjamin and Jane lived their lives was, again, they were constantly in debt. She ended up having to turn her home into a boarding house to help pay some of the bills that her husband was acquiring. And the money that he owed, Benjamin was in Philadelphia printing it. He had a lot of money. His wealth was gaining astronomically fast, and his position in society was growing. He ended up opening the first public library. He discovered basically electricity. And he had things read in the royal court in London. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. He did a lot of things, and he ended up helping her later on in life financially after her husband died. But just the parallels in between how she struggled so much and Benjamin had so much was pretty interesting for me to read in this book. The book was one of the best reads I've ever experienced. I truly thought I was going to despise this book because it's a topic I don't know much about, and it's very hard for me to get into it, but I forgot to take notes. That's how much I love this book. So, if you get a chance, please read Book of Ages, The Life and Opinions of Jane Franklin by Jill Lepore. I promise you, you will not regret it. Thank you.